There we go. Okay, and so let me share again. And I'm going to be doing a little bit of a lot of talking today, but it's not always going to be like that. It's going to be more interactive as we go, but we have just a bit to cover and we're only here for an hour. So let's get started. And so this is the policy committee. This is Best Start, Antelope Valley's policy committee. And so today we're going to talk about, we're going to do a brief icebreaker. We're going to do an overview of Best Start, talking about the framework that goes into Best Start, the role of the committee here, as we all are, and then a closing. So welcome to the policy committee. And thankfully, we're all here today. And so in the chat, if you can just take a moment, you can introduce yourself, let us know your name, your organization. I know a lot of us know each other, and you know, AV is a small place, but maybe some of us don't. So if we can put your name, your organization, and name an issue facing the AV that you are most passionate about. And I'm going to read a couple of them as we get started. So again, introduce yourself, put your name, your organization, and one issue facing the AV. I know there's a couple that we've got up here, but maybe there's something that you're passionate about that people aren't familiar with. So hi, Karen. Karen is a graduate of the Best Start Policy Leadership Committee. So lovely to see you, Karen. She is with CareNet Women's Resource Center. She's most passionate about valuing the lives of moms and babies in the Valley. Absolutely. Darrell is our colleague, my colleague here with Best Start, homeless housing population. We've got a problem up here with that. Correct, absolutely. Lisa Whitecrow, she is the regional administrator, the ARA for DCFS, and her passionate concern is disproportionality. Thank you, everyone who's responding. Denise, A+ Nutrition for Life and homeless. So right up there with Darrell. Lisa Dawson. Lisa is also with CB, Children's Bureau. One issue facing the AV is AA maternal and infant mortality. I just saw an article on Google of a woman in Brooklyn or New York. I shared it with Darrell, who died while giving birth. So very sad. She was, I think, 26. So okay, and if you don't want to, you don't have to put in, but this is just a way to ice break. Tess is a long-term Best Start member. She is with Action for Kids, the Child Abuse Prevention Council, and her passion is youth and families. Welcome, Tess. Adam is also with CB, Children's Bureau. He does policy advocacy, lives in the Northridge area, interested in making sure that AV gets the resources it needs and deserves. Thank you, Adam. Bridget's also with CB, Children's Bureau, adult and child mental health and homelessness. So important. So thank you so much, everyone, for participating in that brief little icebreaker. We appreciate it. Gives us a sense of who you are, who's in the room, so to speak, the virtual room, and what issues you're passionate about as we move forward. And so next. So we're going to do a little bit of overview of Best Start. So as I mentioned in the emails, you know, our Best Start Antelope Valley is the larger, it's called the partnership or the regional, and it is the overarching agency that the policy committee is involved with. So the policy is an arm of the Best Start and the regional meeting. And so we're going to talk a little bit about what Best Start, what makes up Best Start, you know, the visions, the purpose, and then we'll go into the committee. So Best Start Antelope Valley is a First Five of LA initiative. So that's where Best Start gets its funding from, and it's the tobacco initiative. And so First Five, they're invested in engaging communities in a common vision with a lens on children and families to thrive, working to strengthen community leadership and collaboration across the sectors. So that is First Five, our overseeing agency, their initiative. And how Best Start came about. So First Five LA believes that working with parents and residents is critical. That's why you're all here. That's why we value your input. No one is more of an expert than the people that are living, working, worshiping in the communities that the issues face. So that was how Best Start initiative came about. And here's an overview of First Five and the Best Start regions and what they look like. So within Best Start, there are 5 regions. and 14 communities. So each region has what's called the RNG, the Regional Network Grantee, and then they also have the LNC, which is the local community, the outreaching. So with Region 1, that's in kind of downtown LA proper, and that would be Para Los Niños, they're the RNG. For Region 2, that's CHC, Community Health Councils. They're over in the Broadway, Manchester area, Compton, Watts, West Athens. Region 3, which is Panorama City, that edge of the valley, that's El Nido. Region 4 is Central Long Beach, Wilmington, that's the nonprofit partnership. And then ourselves, Region 5, Children's Bureau. So that's what the regions look like. And they were chosen all because of the issues facing them, socioeconomic issues that needed to be addressed, that to work on to strengthen those areas, children and families. So Best Start. So we've gone over first 5, which is our funder. What is Best Start? What does Best Start look at? So the purpose of Best Start is to cultivate, as I mentioned, the community voice, leadership, and power to advance systems change. And we'll talk about systems change. And the community voice and the power are the key to systemic change. So that's what we're looking at when we're talking about Best Start. Again, that's the overseeing program that this policy committee answers to and helps support. So what is the pathways to systems change through Best Start Antelope Valley? How do we accomplish that? So here's a little bit about the framework. And again, I'm sorry for the little blurriness of this. So we've got the AV Best Start framework. So our vision is very simple. Antelope Valley families stronger together. So AV stronger together. We believe that we will achieve this vision through systems change, community engagement, organizing, and capacity building approaches. And when we talk about systems change, some people, well, what is systems change? Well, you view systems change versus direct services. So if you're maybe handing out diapers, if you're doing something that's, from the organization to people, that's kind of direct service. We're looking at changing the systems that affect the way things have always been, and to disrupt change, to disrupt the system so that we can make change. That's really what it comes down to. And the strategies and methods that we use can vary. So it's popular education, asset-based, community development, rural communities. These are some of the strategies that we use to, again, shift these change, to shift the six systems change. Whoa, tongue twister there. By shifting the 6 systems conditions. So that's what we're looking at. And this is the overall framework. And as you see on the right, it breaks it down to outline the asset-based, the rural communities, the popular education, and then how we're going to change is the engaging systems change capacity build. Within the middle is Best Start Antelope Valley, Family Stronger Together. So I really like this slide because it really breaks down what we're looking at and where we, as the policy committee, fit into this. So as I mentioned, on the left you see there, that's Children's Bureau, and Children's Bureau of Southern California is the RNG. We're the holder of the grant. So that's us, that's our place. The partnership, again, it's interchangeable with regional, but that's the group that makes up the community residents, the network partners, people that are attending the meetings, that are involved in the day-to-day work of the community in some fashion or another. And just looking at the people that we have here, all of you are doing that on some level already. Lisa Whitecrow's DCFS, Lisa Dawson works with Children's Bureau, but over Black Infant Health and Healthy Families. Karen's doing work at CareNet, Denise, and then Maria and Tessa are residents, and in some capacity or another, they're involved in various different ways. So already, and David's with Project Joy, our buddies, Kim Watson and her group at Project Joy. So already in this small little group, we have people that are doing great work in the Antelope Valley. So the partnership, the regional, is exactly what we have here, people that are doing work in the Antelope Valley. AVPH, which if you're on this call, you probably know who AVPH, they're our local network. So they're doing the community organizing, the engagement. So they're out there actually connecting with people, talking about us, going to events, engaging with the public to let them know, hey, this is what we're doing, Best Start. And so underneath the RNG and the LNC, you have the 4 different committees. And the 4 different committees include the welcome and outreach, which is pretty much what it sounds like. It's taking people that come in to the Best Start and saying, hey, welcome. glad you're here, and also outreaching, like I mentioned, with what AVPH does. So that's the Welcome and Outreach Committee. Then you have the Sustainability. That's a very that's a committee that hasn't thoroughly been flushed out yet, but it's to sustain the actual program of Best Start when funding is no longer with Children's Bureau, because it will be complete. Policy is ourselves. So on this committee, we're looking at policy and how it affects the Antelope Valley residents, the families, children, and how we can help support policy. And then data. That's another one. Bridget, who's on the call, she's a part of the data committee. That's a pretty exciting one because it's looking at data. And again, the work that we do in Best Start, how does it relate back to the data that we've collected? We're doing some really exciting work here in the Antelope Valley. We actually are working on a State of the Child report with Catalyst California to really delve into policy. And again, the data will drive the work. So it's important. So these are the 4 committees that exist that in some form or another are either up and running like the policy or are about to. So in each of their different issues, they're touching a lot of the work that we're going to be doing in the Antelope Valley. And so that's where we fall under the Best Start structure. So now we're going to talk a little bit about policy. So the policy committee is an advisory role to the larger regional partnership to focus on policy in the Antelope Valley. So that's what we're doing right now. This is the policy committee. The purpose, which is lined up in our framework, which we've been talking about in our larger regional meeting, which met on January 19, is the purpose is to foster community involvement, yourselves, in policy, driving the community change agenda with an emphasis on children and families. Now, you might hear that phrase a lot, community change agenda. What on earth does that mean? It's called the CCA, and it's the work that we do. So the CCA, the agenda, is what all of our work revolves around. And in the past, the work has been, the CCA, the change agenda, has been child abuse prevention and resource mobilization. And in child abuse prevention, we did a lot of work regarding that in policy, and I'll get to that shortly. So that's our purpose right there. Our roles and responsibilities. So that's important too. And as the policy committee, we're going to look a lot at identifying issues related to the change agenda to bring back to the partnership to decide on action steps. We might look at monitoring bills. We might look at letters of support. We might even look at phone calls or visiting our local legislators, public information, social media strategy, and we're definitely going to be monitoring bills that relate to children 0 to 5, children and families, 0 to 5. And that's where it's important that we look at these key bills to see what directly relates to child welfare, directly relates to the work that we're doing, and then bring that back to the larger partnership regional meeting to see how we can support those bills. And if we make decisions, then we're going to ask for the larger partnership regional meeting to vote on that, to see if that's what they want to do. So this committee has a lot of power in where we're going to be doing and what kind of bills we're going to be supporting. So that's super exciting. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about what we've done in the past. So in the past, we worked on child welfare bills. And one of the child welfare bills that we worked on was the story of Gabriel Fernandez. And if some of you are not real familiar, I'm just going to give you a brief overview of what happened. Gabriel Fernandez was a child that lived in the Antelope Valley, and he was unfortunately killed by his mother and her boyfriend. And because of that, and because of what happened, our legislators here in the Antelope Valley decided to get together and try and combat how they could reduce this kind of tragedy from happening. And those were the Assemblyman Tom Lackey and Senator, Tom Lackey and Scott Wilk, Senator Scott Wilk. And they got together, and the bill actually morphed over time and became very different. But the first bill that happened was AB 1450. And AB 1450 was a bill that, again, looked at child abuse and wanted to create a kind of a database for child abuse offenders, kind of like what Megan's Law does for sex offenders. It didn't pass, and it didn't become a bill. So the next year, Assemblyman Tom Lackey looked at that and said, okay, let's try AB 31. So it morphed into AB 31, and AB 31 was going to create an ombudsman position. And what it was going to do is it was going to take a period of, I believe it was 2 years, look at all of the cases that got, into a greater, became more of an issue, and then see how they could look at, curbing child abuse that way. So those were the two bills that our local legislators chose to look at the Gabriel Fernandez's case and try and combat the child abuse, look at child abuse prevention. And the lady on the left, the lady on the right, was actually a resident of ours, and this is what we did. So this is our poster, and what we did for ending child abuse was we started to make we had the posters made, we had the pins and ribbons made. We started writing letters to our legislators to let them know that as a group, as Best Start Antelope Valley, we were supporting the bill, and as there it was it was 1450, so that was the older one, and that we wanted to wanted to pass. When 31 came about, we actually made calls to the Public Safety Committee when it was being heard in the Public Safety Committee in Sacramento, and again urging the legislators to support this bill for the Best Start Antelope Valley, for our community. Now, unfortunately, AB 31 did die in committee. It didn't pass. There were various reasons for why it didn't pass, but it didn't. And so that was the end of that work that we did on the Gabriel's Law. But that gives you a sense of what we can do as a community, how we can support a bill that's reflected exactly for the Antelope Valley. This was a child who was a resident of the Antelope Valley, who died in the Antelope Valley, and our legislators found a way, or thought they had found a way, to work to combat this. And so we got on board, and we actively pursued and wanted to make sure to let our legislators know that, hey, this was something that we wanted to support. So this was a perfect example of how our community got together to support the bill and to be behind the bill as it stood. And again, it did not pass. And so I'm not sure if Lackey is going to be putting it through a third time. I do have connections with his legislative director, but that's possible. But at this time, there is nothing that I'm aware that it's going into its third. And so that was something that we did. And so I wanted you to see that, that this was something that the people really were passionate about. Child abuse prevention was our community change agenda at the time. And again, with the framework that's being reworked, and with a lot of the foundational work that we're doing in the larger regional group, it could change. But the fact remains that we will still always be working with child welfare issues, because that's the work that we do. That's the work that First Five does, that Children's Bureau does, and that Best Start. So we're all very much aligned with the work that we do. So the bills that we will be looking at in the next in this coming session will not be will not vary wildly. They will be very similar to the work that we've been doing in the past. And I'm glad that on the call we have Adam Seaton. He's actually the advocacy for Children's Bureau of Southern California, and he and I work closely together to look at the bills that are coming up, to recommend which bills that we might be interested in. And so when we get to that that area, I will be creating a policy matrix where we will talk about the bills that are coming, the ones that may be very, very much reflective of the Antelope Valley, or maybe bills that are just child welfare related that we might want to take on as a group. So that's where it will start. And so that's exciting. I mean, I think that's great. And, it's a way that we can really get behind and be a change for the Antelope Valley. So actually, I'm going to stop here. I know I've been talking for a little bit. So I wanted to see if there's any questions, any clarification that anyone needs, or just you're tired of hearing me and you'd like to ask a question. So I'll just stop here for a moment. And if you don't want to take yourself off mute, you can certainly put your comments in the chat. And I know none of you are shy, so no comments. Hi, Tess, how are you? Okay, Karen said thank you. Thank you, Karen. Okay. And so I don't want to put Adam on the spot because I didn't do this beforehand. But Adam, I did want to you to let kind of talk, not talk, but kind of let the group know of maybe some of the past bills. I know Adam and I meet regularly, and I know he talked about one of the bills that was the mandated reporter bill, which was really interesting because it's currently going on, and it might change the way that child mandated reporter look like. And so that was just one of the bills that I brought to attention. So I don't know if you wanted to mention that, Adam, and just kind of
Sure.
let the group know. Okay, great. Thank you so
Sure.
much.
So what I would say, there's probably two different ways of two different big buckets of what happens. One is thinking of budgetary type things. So whether that be just a budget request in the try to get in the state budget, or even a bill that ties to a budget request. But if it has something to do with more funding, like we ought to pay mental health care providers better so we could get more of them in there, or let's put more money into grad school grants to get more MSWs so we can have more in the field, or let's put more money into family resource centers. Those types of budget requests is kind of one area of things. And then the other area of things are things that are more only policy related, like what Tracy was just talking about, mandated reporter reform. And one of the big, kind of things with that, there is a big push to really change the way mandated reporting is. And one of the big, it's the idea being that so many families of color are wrapped up into it at such a disproportionate rate. If you are, white, there's like a 25% chance of a white child getting wrapped up into the early coming to the attention of the child welfare system through a report to Child Protective Services. If you're Black, it's like 50%. So it's really a different thing. And the question is, is that somewhat because of the way it's set up, where it's not really set up where people are looking at, is a child in danger, is a child at a high risk of being injured, but it's more, I'm a mandated reporter and I'm afraid that if I don't report, I could be breaking the law. And I'd rather just go ahead and report it because I'm not really sure. I don't know. And if it looks like the kid doesn't have a good, nutritious lunch, or if their clothes aren't right, or if it seems like there's some issue, that, and oftentimes these things are kind of general neglect. They aren't so even physical neglect, physical abuse. It's that fear of, well, I better do it just to make it better to report than to not report. And then it makes it harder for often, organizations that are working with families to kind of build that trust. And so it's looking at, well, let's maybe change some of that. There was a bill that we were looking at doing to change some of that, especially, and it wouldn't be about kind of physical and sexual abuse. Obviously, that shouldn't be touched, but it's things that are around poverty and around general neglect. And maybe there should be a different place to call, or a different way to do it, or, less people who have to report. Obviously, anybody who wants to report and thinks there's an issue can. But it's looking at those types of changes. That would be an example of like a policy change. I imagine that Assemblymember Lackey will come back with something else called Gabriel's Law. That has kind of been his thing, and it might actually be like what he started with, which was trying to make it so that law enforcement had a bigger hand in adding families to the database of being in the child, of kind of being CPS, reported right to CPS. Now, one thing would be if more families and more individual reported on that, great. There'll be more people who can be screened out of being able to be around kids, but also, if more families get caught up, especially if they get caught up for these things we're talking about, things that are not actually child abuse, but are more just poverty. Now you get on a list and you can't, get a job, and you can't keep your family together. And so do we want law enforcement more involved in being able to add people to lists, or are lists bad? We kind of want to make sure people are staying off of lists so they can, keep their families. But those types of policy questions would be kind of the policy types of things.
Yes. Yeah. And thank you so much. Yeah. And I know, like I said, Adam and I speak regularly during the month. And so this is again where we will start to look at the new bills that have come up in the session, so that we can look and see what do we want to take on, if we want to take on something. And then those recommendations will be given to the larger partnership regional to see, do we want to letters of support? Do we want to, start contacting our local legislators? How do we want to make a change with this particular bill? And again, just because we do have our local very involved legislators, we do have Juan Carrillo, we have Assemblyman Tom Lackey, we have Senator Wilk, we do also have Congressman Garcia up here. So we do have federal as well as state that we could look at those bills and say, this is one that we want to take on, that we want to support, and let's do our next step now. So that is what it, did you want to say something else?
I just want to say it is interesting. The Antelope Valley is in a very interesting place for the first time in a very long time, if not forever, where before there used to be just, kind of basically at the assembly level, and then above that's the state Senate, above that's the federal Congress. All three basically for the Antelope Valley were the same district. Maybe it took in Santa Clarita or not, maybe it went into San Bernardino or not, but it was basically you had one person at each of those, and they were all from the minority party. And this time, for the first time, the Antelope Valley at the assembly level was split into two. So you have one that's kind of the western edge of it, Palmdale and Lancaster, out in San Bernardino, which is still represented by Assemblymember Tom Lackey, who's been a representative for a long time. You have a brand new assembly member in Juan Carrillo, which is the east half, which is kind of really a Latino majority district that was carved that way because there were so many people there that needed to be represented. And so it's an interesting dynamic too, for the first time in a very long time, have two different people who probably have very different views on what would be good for the Antelope Valley representing in the assembly.
Yeah, good point. And Adam, if you're not familiar, I know I did if you attended any of the regional meetings in the past year, there was a redistricting. So that's kind of what Adam's talking about. There was a redistricting, and even Congressman Garcia was affected because he used to serve the Simi Valley area, and he no longer has Simi Valley. It was more to make it because Kevin McCarthy actually used to come into our district down here in Lancaster. He no longer does. He's over more in Kern, and Congressman Mike Garcia now has the majority of the Antelope Valley, which is as it should be. It should be all together. It was always weird how Lancaster was kind of carved out half of it. So that's good to okay, no problem, Maria. That's good to know. And so in case that was of a concern. And so we do have the two assemblymen, the one senator, and now the congressional didn't change for Mike Garcia. So I'm going to stop again here. I know Adam mentioned some of the bills, very exciting bills, that would really change the way child mandated reporter looks like. And again, I'm not saying that we're following that bill or we're making any recommendations. That's just something along the lines that we would, because it is child welfare. But is there any questions again at this time that you're, questions, concerns, or issues, or just, want to make a comment of something before I continue? I'll pause here in case anybody does. Let me make sure there's no comments in the comment section in the chat. Okay. Oh, Maria Morales had to go. Okay, that's what that was. Okay. Okay, so I'll continue. Let me just share my screen again. So I just wanted to put this slide in. This is kind of the commitment to the committee back when we were meeting. Oh, just real quick, everybody can see the screen. Darrell, I can see you. Can you see it? Okay. So this was the commitment to the committee. Again, back when we were in 2022, we had decided, that group at the time, that the meeting was to take place on the fourth Wednesday of the month, 2 to 3. So I wanted to make sure, just do a check that still works for everybody. We did choose that time frame because it was at the end of the month after the 2 regional meetings, which are the first and the third Thursday. So that's why we wanted to make sure that we can do it at the end of the month so that we can get all of the regional meeting, all the work that they're doing. We can do an update and then we can move on to policy work. So wanted to see if that still works. And if not, let me know in the chat, or if you just wanted to raise your hand and say, no, Tracy, that doesn't work. And okay, I'm not seeing anybody. And then as we get into policy work, and as we really start to do the work where we're using policy, we're working on policy, we're making changes, we might have maybe an ad hoc meeting, if that happens, where we might need to do a little bit more work. But again, right now, I don't anticipate that happening. Adam and I, as I mentioned, we had talked earlier, and we probably won't even know bills we really want to look at until probably the latter part of February. I believe Adam and I had talked about that, correct? So once we kind of get a sense of the bills, and just so you know, last year we were looking at about 13 bills. Those were the ones that we were kind of watching, seeing what they do, just keeping abreast of kind of what Sacramento was doing. So that was how many bills we had last year. And again, that doesn't mean that all 13 we take on. That doesn't mean that we'll be working on all of them, but that just gives you a sense of the amount of bills. And there's there's always change. We might have more, we might have less, but that's the amount that we were looking at last year. And so again, that's that. Oh, excuse me, went the wrong way. And so just it looks like we're going to end a little bit quicker this meeting. And again, this meeting was just kind of give you an overview of the work we're doing. And as such, we would urge everyone to try and do at least one of the regional meetings. This is where you'll really get a sense of what's happening. As I mentioned in a lot of the emails that I've been sending you, I know I've been sending you a lot. We are doing a lot of framework in the regional. We're really looking at our community change agenda. As I mentioned, it had been child abuse prevention and resource mobilization, but that might change. So that will affect kind of what we do here. As I mentioned, our work will still be around child welfare, but if we zero in on, let's say, homelessness or something like that, that may affect the bills that we work on. So our next regional meetings are Tuesday, February 2nd, coming up, was it next week? We have two meetings. We have a 10 o'clock and a 4 o'clock. We've actually moved the time up for the afternoon. So those are the two meetings on the 2nd. And then the 16th, we're meeting twice now, is again 10 and 4 p.m. So you have a chance to attend any of those meetings. And I would urge you, if you have the time, to do so again, so you can keep abreast. I will be relaying as we meet in the afternoon, as we meet on that last Wednesday, I will be relaying a lot of the work that we're doing in those meetings. So if you can't make that meeting, it's not the end of the world. I'll be kind of reviewing as we go along. So you can always rely on that I'll give you an update of what they've done in the regional, and then we'll start doing our policy work. Our next policy meeting, as I mentioned, is going to be Wednesday, February 22nd. We may or may not have a sense on, because it's going to be almost a month, or is a month. We may or may not have a sense of what bills we're looking at. So that might be an exciting committee meeting, because we might have a list, we might have a matrix started. And then what we'll be doing is we'll be going through the bill by bill to really talk about it, to look, if you've ever been on Ledge Info, where all the bills are listed, we'll talk about what the bill entails, who's the author. And again, keep in mind, just because we're in the AV doesn't mean that it will be a bill authored by an AV. We could have a bill down in San Diego, we could have a bill in Sacramento, it could be anywhere, but if it's child welfare related, that's what we're looking at. So we might be going over bills in February, which will be so exciting, and looking and talking about what the bill entails and how we may or may not want to move forward with this. And so again, if that happens and we do have a list of bills, if we do find a bill that is something that we want to take on, then we will discuss it as a group and then move forward. And again, the heavy lifting, I'll be doing that for you. I'll be, looking at the bills. I'll be, kind of dissecting them, getting the information for you all. And then your job, which we're asking for, is to come to the table as you are, come to the table as a community member, come to the table as a network partner, as a stakeholder here in the AV, to give your thoughts on what you want to do. So you're very important to the committee. So
hey, Tracy, I think Karen had a question in the chat.
Okay.
If we happen to see a bill that pertains to our organization and the mission of Best Start, would it be okay to forward it along to you for possible consideration?
Absolutely, absolutely. And that was going to be, we were going to talk about that on the 22nd. Yeah, it's not just me. This is my job, so I'm going to bring to you bills that I think might benefit the AV, might be of a benefit to our children and families in the AV. But yes, if the committee here sees a bill out there, you come across it, or you just happen to read it, or et cetera, absolutely, yeah, send that to me. I'll do the research. You don't even have to do, like I said, I'm the heavy lifting. So you can just send me the bill author. You can send me, if you have it, the bill number, and then I can do the rest to bring it to the committee. So thank you, Karen, for that question. Absolutely. So as I mentioned, the policy committee will meet again. It looks like I didn't see anybody in the comment or raise their hand that said that this last February of the month does not work for them. So we will keep this as the standing time. And again, you have the link. I will be sending the link out to you the week before, the day before, and the hour before. So you don't need to worry about writing anything down. You'll get tired of seeing my email in your inbox. But regardless, that is when we will meet every month. And like I said, hopefully this next month we'll have a good beginning of some of the bills we'll be following. So that will be really exciting. I'm super looking forward to that. Yes, I'm a little bit of a political policy nerd, but it's okay. And then I'm going to stop here to see if there's any questions again. Like I said, I know I'm talking a lot today, but again, this is about us as a collective group looking to do some good work in the AV regarding and around policy. So if there's any questions, feel free to take yourself off mute, or if you want to put it in the chat, I'll just wait a minute to see if there's any. And Policy Nerds Rock, thank you so much. Karen, as I said, is an alumni of our, I think Denise too, you were in the cohort, the academy, you were in the first one, I think so. And I think Lisa Dawson was as well, and Lisa Whitecrow and Yadira. So we got a couple, and Tess, that's right. We got a couple of people here. So very, very well. I think I found my people. Yay. Okay. And so I'm not seeing any questions. So I'm just gonna go to my last slide, which is if the little computer wants to work. Yes. Thank you for joining us. Like I said, I know I've done a lot of talking today. It was a lot of information. So I really, if you were in the first meeting of last year, we really wanted to get under the right, we wanted to get the right start. And that means really understanding that the policy committee is an arm of the larger partnership regional. So though we can do great work and we're going to support the bills, the legislation, and look at policy in the AV, we are an advisory committee. So we advise to the larger group, but this group as it is has a lot of sway. So we can support bills, we can recommend. I anticipate that as we move forward, you yourselves will be actually making the recommendations. I will be here to support you. I will be doing the heavy lifting, like I said, when it comes to researching bills and stuff like that. But I would ask also that you, if you attend and if you want to make the recommendations, because you're the policy committee. And so that's very important that the committee is heard from somebody that's from the committee, that's from the community that wants to do and support a bill. So I think that that's going to be super exciting as we get down to that road. So and I think I'm giving you back a couple minutes, but if there's any other questions or comments, you can take yourself off mute.
I have a quick question. I wasn't able to get in here on time. Will this recording be available for us a little later?
Yes, I'll upload it. Actually, when I send you the video, we are also on LinkedIn. We also have our link tree. So our link tree actually has the YouTube, the Instagram, the Facebook. So if you're not familiar with all of the places that we are on social media, you can certainly follow us. But all of our videos are available on our YouTube channel. So we do have that. So yes, I will make that available to everyone here. So
perfect. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, Carla. Thank you. And Stephanie, as always, is on top of it. She just put the link tree in. So at the top has our little icon, so you can access our YouTube there. And so any other questions or comments before I give you back 15 minutes? But I hope you all agree. This is a really excellent chance to make some changes, to really support the bills, and to do some good work in the AV, which I know, looking at all of you, I know that you are all living, working, breathing, worshiping in the AV. So you're already doing half the work. So to be a part of this, I'm super excited, and I hope you are as well. And I look forward to seeing you next month, and I'll be sending the video out. And I thank you for taking this journey together. I think it's going to be great. So thank you all for spending your afternoon with me, and I take care. Thank you, Karen. Thank you, Carla.